Dawn bled over the jagged peaks of the red mountains, its pale radiance casting the Tower of Joy in muted hues of rose and ash. Wind curled around the lonely spire, whisper thin and searching, as if it too hunted for secrets locked behind limestone walls. Within the cramped birthing chamber, Lyanna Stark lay half upright upon the piled silks Rhaegar had ordered from Volantis. Swaths of winter white and deep Targaryen crimson, already stained by nights of sweat and blood. The babe slept against her breast, small and warm and endlessly fragile, unaware that the world beyond his mother's trembling arms bent toward swords and vows as sharp as flint. Lyanna's vision swam, pain's salty blue mixed with relief and dread. But she forced her gaze to the narrow arrow slit above the pallet. Dawnlight painted the stone rim in daffodil gold. Outside, the Kingsguard still kept their tireless vigil. Ser Oswell Went and Lord Commander Gerald Hightower paced in ghost-white cloaks below, while Arthur Dayne, famed Sword of the Morning, maintained a silent watch atop the spiral stairs. Rhaegar was dead. Lyanna had learned that truth in broken whispers the night before, when Hightower revealed the trident's toll in a voice stripped bare of glory. Her betrothed, Lord Robert Baratheon, marched now for King's Landing, mad for Targaryen blood. Yet none of that weighed so heavily as the knowledge that Ned, her gentle wolf of a brother, was somewhere in the south, riding like a storm to find her. Honor would drag him here, but honor could not shield the child. Robert's wrath would scorch indiscriminately. Lyanna cradled the infant closer, hushed his fretful stir, and listened for the steps of wet nurses or guards. Every breath tasted of old fear, the claustrophobic dread of a stag's antlers closing around a wolf and her pup. A single spark of will, stubborn as north wind, kept her upright. She had to flee. Even weak as winter sunlight, she must steal away before brother and lover, king and usurper, tangled their blades over this secret. She would not let John, a name whispered only to the babe and to no ear else, become a token upon Robert's altar of vengeance, nor a hostage of dragons doomed to fall. She would not watch the Starks of Winterfell break beneath a truth they never asked to bear. The plan had germinated in feverish mindscapes. Slide between guard rotations, descend the cliff path hidden behind the tower's south wall, and ride hard for the Prince's Pass. Yet Lyanna had never ridden those serpent roads. She did not even know if a horse still grazed within the tower stables. She had milk, cloths, and water for a day, perhaps two, and only a curved Myrish dagger beneath her mattress. But resolve, she thought, was a blade of its own. Midnight's hush offered the first opening. The infant slept after suckling, his tiny fist tangled in a lock of her dark hair. Lyanna eased from the cushions, legs trembling anew. She swaddled John in light layers that would pass at a glance for Dornish linen, and strapped him against her chest with a scarf Rhaegar had once draped over his harp. It smelled faintly of sandalwood and orange blossom. Beyond the chamber threshold, a corridor twisted inward like a stone intestine, torch flames sputtering low. She counted the steps, 12 to the first arch, then 6 to a window. But the guards were absent, perhaps summoned below for supper. Lyanna pressed one palm against the wall to steady the world's tilt and slipped onward. Through an oaken door left ajar, she glimpsed the rookery, caged ravens muttering over night-blacked bars. Messages had flown from there to Dragonstone and King's Landing. Perhaps more would fly soon. Yet none must carry news of a vanished woman and child. She shut the door softly. Arthur Dayne's footfall echoed from the stair above, measured and lordly. She retreated, heart hammering against her ribs and against Jon's fragile skull. If he glanced downward, he would see her. Instead, a faint bell rang from the yard, signal of a visitor approaching the gate, and Dayne, duty-bound, turned his attention outward. Lyanna seized the heartbeat of distraction, gliding along the interior ring to a servant's passage she had discovered days earlier when searching for clean cloth. The tunnel dropped steeply in darkness, ending at a postern door. Starlight breathed upon her face when she slipped outside. The air smelled of spiced juniper. Crickets thrummed among the scrub. The world sprawled beneath her, endless red rock gullies, and far off, the shimmer of the Torrentine's tributaries. She felt suddenly small, yet luminous with possibility. The movement roused John. He mewled. Lyanna pressed lips to downy hair. "Hush, little wolf," she murmured, though he bore no wolf's blood alone. "The night cradles us." A narrow, half-crumbled stair, once carved by some long-dead stonemason, hugged the cliff behind the tower. She descended sideways, each foot searching for surety. Twice loose dust slithered beneath her toes and stones clattered into the depths, but wind tore the noise away. At the base lay an overgrown courtyard, walled on 3 sides by sheer rock. A single iron gate faced the desert. Beside it grazed 3 horses, a sturdy dappled gelding, a spirited chestnut, and a lean gray. Saddles sat askew, as though stable hands had tended them mere hours before the world turned upside down. Lyanna chose the gray for quickness, whispering to calm its startled snort. She lashed a waterskin and a parcel of dried figs to the pommel, mounted with a grimace, her body still a battlefield of torn sinew, and urged the horse eastward. The path merged soon with a trader's trail, a ribbon of pale dust meandering between sandstone pillars. Moonlight painted everything silver and bone. She rode in drifting clouds of her own breath, alert to every rustle. Somewhere to the north, the Kingsguard would discover her flight. Somewhere beyond, Ned might feel a phantom tug, sensing his sister hurtling through darkness. The first watchfires of Kingsguard pursuit sparked upon the tower's crown just before dawn. Lyanna, miles away, spied them as fading stars surrendered to morning's tide. She coaxed the gray into a faster trot. In her mind's eye she saw Sir Arthur descending the cliff path in grim silence, saw Gerald Hightower commanding a search to the last grain of sand. She prayed they believed she fled for the Stormlands, to her betrothed, and not deeper into Dorne. By high sun, she crossed a dry stream where cracked mud bore prints of goats and the occasional sandcat. Heat pressed heavy, but a westering breeze brought relief and carried scents of date palm and distant sea. John slept aglow in the sling, lulled by the horse's rhythm. Every so often she eased him out, letting him nurse beneath a sparse shade, though her milk felt scant. The figs she chewed reluctantly, but they kept faintness at bay. That night she made camp beneath an arthritic olive tree. The gray, she had named him Mist now, grazed among scrub. Lyanna laid John on her cloak and stared up at a sky rinsed clean of clouds. Constellations shone brighter in the south, less burdened by the bite of winter storm. She traced the ice dragon, saw the flare of its eye, and thought of home. Winterfell's smoky hearths, the soft hush of snow against her window. She promised herself she would send Ned a sign of life, one day. But not yet. He must ride north believing her either dead or beyond his reach. It was a cruelty paid for the boy's safety. She dreamed of a blue rose blooming from a chasm of ice, and when she woke before dawn cold sweat slicked her brow. John stirred, lips puckering in search of comfort. She kissed his cheeks, tasting salt. The next stretch took her across a land slowly waking to the harvest of late spring. Dornish smallfolk tilled narrow fields embroidered between cliffs. They stared when she rode by, their suspicion tempered by the sight of her child in travel-worn garb. She adopted the accent of the stony Dornish as best she could, the low cadence learned from a chatty maid in the tower, replying courteously but offering no name. In one village, she traded silver hairpins for goat's milk and soft cheese. In another, she bartered a sapphire ring, Ned's gift to her on her 16th name day, for a fresher set of linens. Each coin of her past life slipped from grasp like leaves upon a river. On the 4th day, as dusk pulled violet across the desert flats, Lyanna encountered a patrol of Martell spearmen. They emerged swift as mirage from a stand of cypress. 8 men in copper-studded leather, spears glinting, sunburst sigils stitched to ochre cloaks. Their captain, a slender woman with hair shaved at the sides, drew rein before Lyanna and studied her intently. "You ride alone, lady?" she said, words crisp yet not unkind. The sands swallow many. Her gaze flicked to the bundled infant. "Even more so, children." Lyanna angled her chin, drawing strength from that same stubborn winter wind inside hearths of her memory. "We seek Sunspear," she answered, shaping each syllable with care. "I would offer my service at Prince Doran's court." The captain's brows lifted. "Service? And what craft does a lone wayfarer bring the prince? You do not sound of Dorn." Lust. Truth pressed bitter at Lyanna's tongue. Lies tasted no sweeter. Before she could shape either, John startled awake and wailed. The captain's stern face softened. "Come," she said, motioning. "Our road runs to Sunspear. We will escort you." Guarded within their column, Lyanna felt her limbs sag beneath fatigue. She had kept at bay through sheer will. The spearmen shared water freely. One offered a strip of candied lemon John attempted to gum. They camped beneath sandstone arches that caught moonlight like cathedral windows, and the Dornish sang low songs of rivers and lovers lost beneath blossoming orange trees. Lyanna listened, her heart twisting with sorrow and something akin to hope. These were not Robert's men, nor cold, silent Kingsguard. Perhaps Sunspear could be sanctuary. 2 more dawns passed before the shining walls of Sunspear rose like a mirage of golden spires over shimmering sea. Its towers, Sandship, Spear Tower, and Tower of the Sun, loomed against cerulean sky, their shadows stretching over the water gardens. Lyanna's pulse quickened, half with relief, half with terror at unknown futures. The captain dismounted before a side gate and beckoned her forward. "Wait in the courtyard. I will send word." Lyanna stood swaying beside Mist, cradling John, while servants bustled past with baskets of figs and jars of briny olives. Sea wind carried laughter of children splashing somewhere behind the high walls. She closed her eyes, letting the salt air scrub away weeks of fear. It was not Prince Doran who came but Princess Elia's younger sister, Princess Arianne, barely 14, all wildfire eyes and confidence. Flanked by 2 handmaidens, she approached with measured grace, though curiosity lit her features. "The captain speaks of a northern lady," Arianne said, voice low but melodious. "She says you bear a son newly born." Lyanna bowed, exhaustion making the motion wobble. "My lady, I beg audience with Prince Doran for the child's sake. I carry secrets that could drown half the realm in blood." She lifted John slightly. "Please, Hot." Arianne examined the baby, noting the dark hair, the faint curl at his ears so like the prince who sired him. Something unreadable flickered across her face. "Come," she said at last. "My father must hear you." Doran Martell waited in a sunlit solar overlooking the sea, his gouty swollen legs propped upon cushions. He seemed tired, ancient beyond his years, yet shrewd intelligence glimmered behind heavy-lidded eyes. When Lyanna knelt, the child stirred with infant squeaks, and Doran's gaze sharpened. "Rise, my lady," he murmured. "You appear worn to threads." She straightened, nausea roiling. "I am Lyanna Stark of Winterfell." The words hung weighty in the warm air. "This boy is John. His father was your nephew." Silence fell heavy as a drawn blade. Arianne inhaled sharply. Even cool Doran's fingers twitched against chair arms. "Rhaegar's child," Doran murmured, voice barely above the surf's distant hush. "Alive." Tears blurred Lyanna's sight. Robert will kill him if he learns. Ned will protect him, but Robert's hatred, he is blind to mercy." She swallowed. "I beg you, shelter us. Hide John within Sunspear's walls or beyond. Let him live. Iste present caught." Doran steepled his fingers. "You know what you ask? House Martell already bleeds. Elia and her children lie dead. My own sister's bones have not cooled. To harbor another Targaryen babe may invite Robert's wrath anew." Lyanna's knees threatened collapse. "I know." Her voice cracked. "But Elia's blood is Jon's blood too. He shares Dorne's veins. Do not let that lineage perish wholly." Arianne touched her father's arm. "Elia would wish us to protect kin, father. And what better rebuke to the usurper's butchery than a living heir nurtured in secret?" "Isabe." Doran closed his eyes, exhaling a breath that seemed to carry a decade's worth of grief. "The boy bears both dragon and wolf," he said eventually. "Perhaps the gods would see fire and ice tempered here in sun." He opened his eyes. "You shall have refuge, Lady Lyanna, so long as Sunspear stands, and so long as secrecy can be maintained." The lad will be called? Mayhaps we grant him Dornish name, to mask the truth. Dare on sand, Arianne suggested, dimpling at the sound. No, Lyanna whispered, an edge of panic flaring. His name is Jon. Let him keep at least that shard of himself. Doran inclined his head. Very well, Jon. Sand, then. He will be raised among my water gardens, disguised as bastard ward, until such time as the realm might bear his truth. Are you content, Lady Stark? Relief struck her like a gale. She nearly wept outright. I am. Yet, as she bowed, Lyanna felt the subtle clamp of a gilded cage. Within Sunspear's walls she and her son would live. Safe but hidden, identities submerged beneath layers of careful lies. Could Winter's wolf endure such ceaseless masquerade? She did not know. But she knew only one oath now. Jon would live. Everything else could be bargained. Servants guided her through cool hallways to a suite of modest chambers, overlooking a courtyard perfumed by lemon trees. She bathed beneath heated water brought in copper ewers, scrubbing away blood and road dust until her skin glowed raw. She shed Northbourne garb for flowing Dornish silks the color of twilight. A nurse, plump and smiling, took Jon to feed him goat's milk thickened with honey, then returned him to Lyanna's arms smelling of lavender oil. Night spooled violet beyond the balcony. The sea murmured softly, waves lapping against palace pilings. Lyanna sat upon a carved cedar bench, rocking her son as warm breeze drifted through lattice screens. Candles sputtered, casting trembling halos upon the walls. She traced the baby's tiny fingers, marveling at their curl, their perfect nails. You will run these gardens one day, she murmured. Stone paths beneath bare feet, sunshine on your cheeks. She imagined Jon grown tall and lithe, his laughter mingling with Dornish fountains. She imagined Ned's face should he ever walk these halls and glimpse the child. A pang of homesickness split her breast, cold, sudden. But Winterfell felt half a world away, locked behind snow-choked passes, and a brother's likely grief at her supposed death. Someday she would send word. Not today. Let the realm believe her bones fed the sands of Rhaegar's folly, and let Robert drown his rage in fresh halls. Jon had a hidden life to claim. Weeks passed in gentle rhythm. Dawn found Lyanna strolling shaded cloisters, Jon tucked against her heart. Arianne visited often, teasing out northern stories with irrepressible delight. She taught Lyanna the finer shades of Dornish tongue, the politics of water rights, the secret ways a whispered rumor could travel from Sunspear to King's Landing by nightfall. Lyanna listened keenly. Knowledge was new armor. Doran, when his pain allowed, summoned Lyanna to quiet chambers where they played civasse over low tables. He studied her as one weighs prophecy, speaking seldom yet always to piercing effect, of vengeance measured in years, of alliances bound by hidden threads. Lyanna grasped that her decision cast her into currents deeper than personal survival. She was now a piece upon Dorne's board, albeit one he vowed to shield. Yet not every hour lay heavy with intrigue. There were orange blossoms drifting upon turquoise pools, the laughter of palace children who never questioned why Jon's dark hair curled like kings. Lyanna discovered that Sunspear at sunset turned the sea molten gold, and gulls dipped like splinters of quicksilver. She learned to wrap a silk sash twice around her waist and dance to a sand drum's tremor, though her northern feet moved awkward as foals at first. Still, beyond the horizon, storm clouds brewed. Reports arrived of Eddard Stark's victory at the Tower of Joy, where he found only bones and silence. Word spread of a funerary cairn he built for his fallen foes, and for a sister he never discovered. Robert Baratheon had claimed the Iron Throne. Eddard, wounded by sorrow, would return north to guard a memory shaped by lies others had foisted upon him. Lyanna wept in private that night, her grief swallowed by starlight. Ned deserved truth, but not yet. Perhaps someday she would meet him beneath neutral sky, and reveal the living boy who bore the name Jon. Until then, she whispered to the waves, asking them to carry hints of her love northward. Seasons turned. Jon grew. At 6 moons old, he sat unsteadily, blinking wide eyes the slate gray of a winter river. At 8 he laughed when Arianne tickled his belly, and his first tooth broke through as white as dawn on the wall. Lyanna's heart swelled with fierce, steady joy. Each small milestone felt like a victory wrestled from fate's merciless jaws. Yet whispers traveled even through stone walls. Spies in King's Landing uttered rumors of a northern lord haunted by phantoms, of a king whose temper frayed with every horn of ale, of alliances shifting like dune sands. Doran received raven scrolls in the quiet of dawn, eyes narrowing. Once Lyanna glimpsed a parchment seal cracked, a direwolf in gray wax dying. She dared not ask, but dread coiled close. As John neared his first name day, Doran summoned Lyanna to the water gardens at dusk. Fountains played soft music beneath magenta sky. He spoke of patience and plots, of a realm still reeling beneath Robert's volatile reign. The boy remains safe, he assured. But safety is a moat that can dry. We must prepare additional refuge. I consider sending you to the Danes at Starfall, or across the narrow sea to Lys, where even the spider's silk may fray. None. The notion of flight once more carved fear grooves through Lyanna's spirit. Yet, she nodded. I will go where needed. Her resolve had tempered into something quiet, unswerving. She was no longer the wolf maid abducted, but a mother poised to challenge any blade. Later, as she cradled John beside a moonlit window, she contemplated the path ahead. Perhaps one day Sunspear's halls would no longer confine but open gates to a world that had healed its hate. Perhaps the boy in her arms would stand tall beneath banners of sun and spear, or direwolf and dragon twined. For now, the waves below lapped with soothing cadence, as if promising secrecy beneath their argent crests. Lyanna Stark closed her eyes and breathed deep the mingled scents of sea salt and orange blossom. A lullaby, old as northern snowfall, rose on her lips, a song of brave little wolves who found new dens under foreign stars. John's lashes fluttered, his breathing slowed. She laid him in his cradle, woven of Dornish rushes and oak, and brushed a kiss against his brow. Sleep, my heart, she whispered. Tomorrow's sun is ours to claim. Outside, moon-silver sheets rippled across the sea. And in that hush between tides, destiny murmured, still distant, yet alive, awaiting the hour when fire, ice, and sun would meet upon the world's great stage. All PGSQL. Summer's white eye opened slowly over Dorne, simmering the horizon until even the pale sands near Sunspear glowed molten. Lyanna woke earlier each morning, rising while pink still blurred the eastern sky, to feel the brief coolness that lingered before dawn. She carried John to the highest balcony accessible without escort, a slender crown of sandstone overhanging the palace's inner seawall, and let the breeze comb through his dark hair. Already, he reached for everything. The rim of the balustrade, the flapping pennons, her own silver-streaked tresses whipped forward by wind. He would soon learn to walk. The very thought left Lyanna hollow and luminous at once. For each new skill was a step away from her arms and toward the future she could neither shape nor foretell. Even now, tiny feet pressed her ribs when she held him. He pushed, impatient to stand. She laughed softly. Easy little knight, she whispered. The world's lists are no place for you yet. Below them, the palace gates creaked open to receive a train of black-clad riders. They bore the badge of House Blackmont, ravens clutching bloody moons. Lyanna lingered at the parapet only as long as caution allowed, then retreated. Visitors meant gossip, and gossip was contagion. She returned to their suite, abutting the water gardens. Surprised to find Princess Arianne perched cross-legged upon a divan, fingers dancing over a savas board. A single ivory dragon glinted beside her slender wrist. On the opposite side, captured pieces clustered like prisoners. Arianne glanced up, eyes bright. "Father summons you," she said. "An hour past midday. Wear something modest, not grief-black northern garb. Blackmont eyes are sharper than their talons." Lyanna smiled ruefully. "Are any Dornish eyes dull?" "Ours are the desert's only water," Arianne replied, smirking. "One sees far by staring at what is scarce." She tipped the dragon piece with a manicured nail. The raven banner seldom flies south of the Greenblood, yet here they ride. We will learn why soon enough. The princess departed, swirl of amber silk fading into hall shadow. Lyanna rocked John, uneasy. Who else might slip through Sunspear's gates beneath banners of courtesy? Was the realm stirring again so soon? Midday found her escorted through labyrinthine corridors to a shaded audience chamber, where latticed screens cast shifting mosaics across tiled floors. Doran waited, seated cross-legged upon an embroidered cushion instead of his wheeled chair, a sign the gout's fire had cooled today. To his left lounged Prince Oberyn, returned from tourney circuits, sun-bronzed and smiling like a blade catching light. They were rarely together in formal audience. Lyanna tightened her grip on John. Opposite the princes stood Lady Janessa Blackmont, an athletic woman with hawk-sharp cheekbones and hair bound in obsidian clasps. Two of her sworn shields flanked her. She bent a knee at Lyanna's arrival, but offered no smile. Oberyn's voice cut the stillness. "Lady Lyanna, our sister of the north. Come, be at ease." The viper's eyes flicked curiously to John, who clutched Lyanna's ringlets with chubby fingers. "The little warrior grows each time I blink." Doran motioned to cushions set for Lyanna. She seated herself. A servant whisked in to pour chilled dates wine. Janessa Blackmont observed in wary silence. Doran broke the hush. "Lady Janessa rides from Blackmont, bearing tidings brought by riders from Storm's End. Lord Robert Baratheon's banners gather for a grand progress across the Reach, then Westerlands, celebrating the first name day of his reign." Lyanna's stomach tightened. John wriggled, sensing tension. "Much ale will flow," Oberyn added lightly. "And with ale flows talk. It seems Lord Baratheon still scours rumor for any trace of Rhaegar's offspring." He sipped, eyes steady on Lyanna. "There is coin in such rumors. And daggers." "Ben?" Janessa Blackmont spoke at last, her accent clipped as skirling ravens. "A hedge knight bragged of a dragon hatchling spirited away by Wolf's maid. He died conveniently in a brawl near Bitterbridge, but not before others heard. Lord Renly pays tongues for whispers." Only the rustle of the latticed shades disturbed the pause. "We expected this," Doran said softly. "Nonetheless, the news tightens earlier than hoped." Lyanna swallowed. "Is Sunspear still safe?" "Sunspear is safe," Oberyn said, "but its walls cannot turn whispers to dust. Ravens fly over walls. Gold buys birds." He tapped the armrest. "We must mislead the realm's ears, not merely hush them." Doran inclined his chin. "A plan blossoms. Lady Janessa's party will escort a woman and infant northward along the Boneway, ostensibly a wet nurse journeying home. Rumor shall say the child perished of flux en route." He gave Lyanna a mild sorrow-laced look. "Meanwhile, you and John travel elsewhere unseen." Lyanna felt the floor shift. "Where?" "Across the narrow sea," Doran replied. "To Lys. My agents purchased a manse there watered by high walls and private sea gate. You will sail aboard a merchant galley under assumed names. Oberyn will write instructions in cipher to the Lyseni captain." He inclined his head to his brother. Oberyn set down his cup. "Lys teems with half-forgotten bastards and exiles. A northern woman and her babe will melt into its silk-scented sprawl." Lyanna's throat closed. She had only just shed the constant ache of flight. Now another crossing, farther than ever from Winterfell. Yet dread for Jon overwhelmed homesick yearning. "How soon?" "Nightfall tomorrow," said Doran. "The ship Sand Serpent lies offshore beyond the Broken Arm. A swift sand skiff shall carry you downriver at dusk." Lady Janessa stepped forward, unclasped her cloak, and spread it before Lyanna. Small silver needles winked upon the inner lining. "A gift," she said, "each tipped with manticore venom. A scratch will still the heart before a scream." Lyanna stared, pulse hammering. She accepted the cloak with a shaky nod. "I thank you." Doran folded his hands. "Once in Lys, you will assume the name Lady Lyanna, widow of a Braavosi spice factor. The child is your late husband's son, Jonel. My agents will visit quarterly." He paused. You have proven steely beyond measure, my lady. The sand and sea will test you further, but I believe you shall bend, not break." Oberyn rose, strode to Lyanna, and cupped Jon's chin with surprising gentleness. "Little Sandwolf," he murmured. "Dream no dreams of Iron Thrones yet." He met Lyanna's gaze. "Remember, truth is a fluid to be decanted at seasons of your choosing. Guard the bottle well." Now, that night, Lyanna packed few keepsakes. A lock of Ned's childhood hair knotted in twine, her broken promise ring to Robert, and a single white winter rose, dried, yellowing, that she had pressed in a book of Rhoynar legends. She folded Dornish silks alongside plainer woolens. Lys awaited all colors. Jon toddled about the chamber clumsily, batting at shadow motes cast by lantern flame. He laughed, unbothered by the feverish bustle. His laughter anchored her. Shortly before moonrise, Princess Arianne slipped through the servant's door, cloak dark as moonless sky. She pressed a small satchel into Lyanna's hands, velvet pouches heavy with silver stags and Lyseni star coins, a vial of myrrh for teething pain, and a rolled parchment sealed with a sunburst. "My personal cipher," Arianne said softly. "Write when salt sorrow weighs too heavily. A dove will know where to find me." She grasped Lyanna's wrists. "One day return. Dorne owes the North a debt of smiles, not only ghosts." Lyanna embraced her. There was nothing else to say, words being brittle things beside such quiet resolve. An hour before dawn, guards guided her, and Jon to a covered sand skiff, moored in Sunspear's canal. The helmsman, lean as driftwood, wore no house sigil. He offered a curt nod, then pulled them into whispering current. Sunspear's lanterns dwindled into amber dust behind. Ahead, the river accepted them into pitch-dark corridors overarched by fig trees. Jon slept bundled in Lyanna's arms, one fist clutching her night braid. She hummed a lullaby of winter wolves and open moors, letting it carry north across thought alone. They reached the harbor, at first gray light. The sand serpent loomed just offshore, lateen sails furled. Sailors ferried crates from a wharf, busy with gull cries. Lyanna stepped onto a longboat, senses jangling. She breathed brine and tar, recalling childhood tales of Theon Greyjoy, boasting of world's edges met by sea. These waves connected Winterfell's shores to Sunspear's. Distance was only a matter of sailing long enough. On deck, she met Captain Mirio Rogar, pale-haired and perfumed, whose blue lips marked devotion to the Lyseni dream wine trade. He bowed extravagantly. "Welcome, Lady Lynessa. My ship obeys the sun and your comfort." He indicated a curtained companionway. "Your suite adjoins the nursery cabin I prepared. I procured goat's milk, goose down, and a Bravosi rocking crib." Lyanna thanked him, marveling at the efficiency of Doran's gold. Below decks, she found a cabin trimmed in brocade, latticed lamps casting warm glow, and a porthole framing cerulean sea. Jon awoke, babbling. She pressed him against her shoulder, eyes burning, heart fluttering like banner cloth. Hours later, the sand serpent raised anchor. Lateen sails bellied with wind. Sunspear's towers shrank to slender needles. Lyanna watched from the stern till only the sun itself seemed to rest upon the horizon, and she wondered whether dawn in Winterfell looked half so bright now that Ned believed his sister dead. Days at sea arranged themselves into gentle rituals. Each dawn, Captain Mirio inspected the rigging, while parrots screeched atop the mizzen. Mid-morning, Lyanna walked the deck laps, letting Jon clutch her thumbs and wobble step by step. Sailors grinned and scattered seashell fragments in his path, calling him Zora, Little Sunrise, for his bright laughter. She dined on citrus and salted cod, drank spiced tea, and read scrolls Oberyn had pressed upon her, histories of the Rhoynar diaspora, naval routes, and the subtle art of Lyseni courtesy. Jon's world became teak planks and wind-filled white banners. At night, the deck rolled beneath a vault of crystal stars. Lyanna would sit on coiled rope, rocking her son, recounting tales of the kings of winter who rode dire wolves across frozen lake. She wove Ned's gentle face into each myth, so her child would know his uncle's voice, even if years parted them. On the 8th day, gulls reappeared, wheeling above a haze-shrouded coastline. Lys unveiled itself slowly, an archipelago of low islands spangled with blue tile roofs and minarets. At the harbor, pleasure barges set with canopies of silk drifted among fishing smacks, their decks crowded with musicians piping reed flutes. Exotic spices, saffron, cardamom, sweet peppers, mingled with brine and blossoms. Captain Mirio guided Lyanna to the rail. "Behold, the perfumed sister of Bravos," he said. "She will cloak you." He lowered his voice. "House Rogare owes Prince Doran gilded favors. Your presence is our honor." A covered palanquin conveyed her through streets, lined by marble colonnades, dripping bougainvillea dacta. Courtesans in veils the color of sunrise eyed John with mild amusement. Masked coin lenders jangled purses at every corner. The manse stood secluded on aisle within the aisle, high walls broken by a single gate of carved cedar. Inside, a shaded atrium circled a mosaic pool. Willowy servants bowed. That first night in Lys, Lyanna lay awake upon a feather-soft mattress, John curled within crook of her arm. Outside shuttered lattice, nightingales warbled. She wept silently. Relief, grief, fear, and let tears soak into embroidered linen until exhaustion dragged her beneath dream's tide. Weeks slipped into months. She became Lady Lynsa in truth, adopting Lyseni cadence, draping herself in gossamer robes dyed lapis or jade. Her hair she wore loose, adorned by pearl combs. None would suspect a northern wolf once wore such finery to spar with summer wind. Yet she practiced steel. Each dawn she took the manticore needled cloak to a secluded courtyard and drilled, stabbing dummies of straw until shoulders ached. The venom files she stored beneath floorboard knots, marked only by a scrap of Winterfell wool. John thrived. He learned to waddle across ceramic tiles, smudging dusty prints. At 2, he chased painted lizards along balustrades, his laughter echoing through archways. At 3, he pestered the Lyseni sword dancer hired to teach Lyanna courtly grace, and by 4 he grasped wooden daggers with disconcerting focus. Letters arrived every few moons via corsair cogs, thin parchment stitched into the lining of silken scarves. Ariane's ciphers spoke of Doran's careful alliance weaving, of Queen Cersei's temper, of Ned Stark's children blossoming in Winterfell's snows. Each message was at once balm and torment. Lyanna traced Robb's name, Sansa's budding beauty, Arya's wildness, Bran's curiosity. She mourned that ghost life she might have lived as aunt and sister. The 5th year brought upheaval. A letter reported Lord Eddard's mysterious absence from Winterfell. He had ridden south to serve as hand to King Robert. Lyanna's pulse stuttered. The court at King's Landing was a pit of daggers. Ned unbending would be flint amid vipers. She pictured Robert's bearded face, boisterous yet capable of sudden rage. Would his old love for her brother temper or inflame suspicion? Weeks later, a second missive arrived sealed in black. Ned Stark had been executed for treason, declared conspirator with the Targaryen princess in exile. Robb marched to war. Lyanna reeled as if struck by a warhammer. Days passed where she drifted like sun-bleached reed between chambers, scarcely noting servants' attempts to comfort. At night, she clutched John, pressing tear-wet kisses to his hair, whispering apologies to a brother who died believing her gone, and Rhaegar's child lost. On the balcony under bruised twilight, she cursed fate's coils. "I should have ridden north," she hissed at the restless sea. "I should have shown Robert the truth, or faced his fury, rather than let Ned bleed for secrets." John, 5 years old, peered at her with solemn gray-black eyes. In them, she saw both wolf and dragon, and unquestioning trust. The weight of that gaze steadied her heart. She would not tarnish Ned Stark's sacrifice by surrendering to despair. She must ensure the child's claim remained hidden until a world existed that might deserve him. Rumors of war filled Lyseni taverns. Golden lions battling trout, direwolves tearing krakens, dragons stirring in the east. Merchants whispered of red priests declaring a prophesied prince, of witch queens birthing demons in shadows, of wildfire exploding beneath the capital itself. Each story felt as distant as constellations, yet each had potential to tilt destiny toward John. The Lyseni manse grew ears, servants hired by unseen masters, neighbors prying. Lyanna sensed watchful eyes when she walked the spice market, felt coded greetings from Bravosi colossuses who recognized something northern in her stride. The manticore cloak came out more often. She slept lightly, knife beneath pillow. One monsoon dusk, as jade rain hammered roof tiles, a hooded visitor slipped through the manse gate. Gaunt, smooth-shaven, with eyes like molten copper. He claimed to be a representative of the Iron Bank and requested audience with Lady Lyanna. At the atrium pool, he bowed, unblinking. "I travel far, my lady," he intoned, accent a ghost of many places. "My masters extend lines of credit to those burdened by uncertain times." Lyanna met his stare across rippling water. "My burdens are mine to carry." "So I told them," he replied. "Yet they insisted I offer assurance." He produced a folded scrap no larger than a sparrow's wing, Eddard Stark's sigil in faded ink. Lyanna's breath seized. "Where did you get that?" "From a vault where debts are recorded. The debt is a promise, and promises shape futures. A northern promise travels south upon winter's tail." Then, she realized then he was no banker's clerk. Perhaps a faceless man, perhaps merely a spider's whisperer. Either way, dangerous. John padded into view, chasing a jade marble across the tiles. The stranger regarded him. Lyanna stepped between. "Do not fear," he said. "I deal in mathematics, not murder." He bowed again. "The Iron Bank remembers Lyanna of Winterfell." Turning, he melted into rain shadows. She held John until his heartbeat steadied, then packed emergency satchels before dawn. They would move again. Oberyn's agents still breathed along the skinny maiden sea lane. Braavos beckoned with higher walls of secrecy. By autumn's end, Lyanna and John sailed northward, on a cog flying Bravosi purple. Winter storms lashed them past Mire and Tyrosh, clogged their sails with ice as they neared the black water. Refuge beckoned within the Titan's shadow, yet Braavos also harbored whispers, for across the narrow sea news reached even its marble canals. A dragon queen had risen in Slaver's Bay, wielding 3 living dragons born of funeral pyre. Fire had returned to the world, and winter marched from the north with whites in its wake. Lyanna felt the turning of a wheel she could no longer deny. In Braavos she rented a modest flat over a weaver's shop, its shutters overlooking the moon pool. John, now 7, swung wooden swords with street urchins. His reflexes quickened, and his laughter grew rarer, tempered by awareness of their endless flight. He asked questions. Why could they not carry their true names? Why did men in wine shops stare at her hair? Who were the kings beyond the sea? She answered what she could. She taught him Stark words: honor, pack, winter, and Targaryen ones: blood, fire, dragon, explaining that some truths must age like wine, gaining power in patience. John listened, solemn as a maester, storing each syllable. On a fog-dense morning, a raven arrived from Sunspear, engraved with Doran's cipher. Oberyn Martell had fallen in trial by combat against Sir Gregor Clegane. The mountain lay dying of poison. Doran's plans turned swiftly toward alliance with the Dragon Queen across the sea. Lyanna shivered. Dragons again. Doran's next letter, months later, begged her to consider journeying to Meereen under guarantee of hush. The Queen bore no love for Robert's line and every reason to welcome Rhaegar's kin. Arianne herself prepared to depart Sunspear with Dorna's ships. The wheel spun faster. Lyanna sat long that night beside a brazier, watching flames finger the coals like red tongues. John knelt opposite, eyes shining. He had grown tall for his years, shoulders broadening, hair still black as Ravencrow. "You are old enough to choose," she said finally. "We can remain hidden in Braavos, perhaps forever, or sail south to suns we know, to stand amongst those who remember your father's songs." John traced circles in soot. "Will our names be ours? Perhaps." She swallowed. "But once named, you cannot turn back to shadow. Power seeks claim. Blood will answer." He met her gaze. calm as still water on a winter pond. I do not fear shadow or sun, mother. I fear only to live half a life. Her breath caught. She remembered whispers on her deathbed, at the tower. Promise me. Ned. And wondered if promises sometimes required breaking so new vows could breathe. 2 weeks later, mother and son boarded the Selhorus Grace bound for Volantis, thence to Marine. Passing beneath the Titan's legs, Lyanna glanced back northward once. Snow clouds massed far beyond the horizon. She thought of Winterfell's Godswood, of Ned's tomb beneath Stonewolf. She silently begged forgiveness. Jon stood at her side, hair whipping, eyes fixed eastward where tales said dragons mounted the wind. Lyanna laced her fingers through his. Remember, she murmured, wherever we stride, you carry winter's heart and summer's flame. Balance them and no blade may strike true. He nodded, and she saw in him both the quiet steel of her brother and the fierce spark of a man she had loved too late. The voyage stretched across months, yet each night the stars seemed to rearrange themselves into shapes beckoning deeper destiny. In the darkness of her cabin, Lyanna dreamed of dire wolves racing beneath desert moons and dragons, soaring above ice-rimmed forest. Dreams of merging banners, of silver roses blooming across crimson fields. She did not know if the realm was ready. She knew only that Jon no longer belonged to silence. And so the sand serpent's wake dissolved behind them, and in its place formed a path of possibility. A trail of foam leading east, toward fire, toward vengeance, toward the faint, trembling hope that what lay at journey's end might be not a throne of blades, but a dawn where dragon and wolf could stand together under a sun still rising. In PGSQL. Sea wind thickened with jungle musk as the Selhorus Grace crept upriver under a dawn still smeared with torch glow. The prow hissed through sludge-green water where floating lilies drifted like painted shields half submerged after forgotten battles. Lyanna stood at the rail, cloak hooded against damp heat, and watched crocodile-like beasts slide among mangrove roots. Beside her, Jon balanced on narrow toes, squinting at bright parrots that wheeled overhead. He was nearly 8 now, yet so lean he seemed carved from willow, toughened by sea life and sparring drills with the ship's Lyseni quartermaster. Volantis, that ancient tiger city, loomed ahead, split by the black wall that hugged its old quarter like a cracked shell. Masts forested the harbor. Lattice bridges crisscrossed canals clogged with barges. An iron chain, thick as a wyvern's tail, coiled on the south bank, ready to swing across the strait at need. Bell towers rang in polyphonic disharmony. Above them, on hills beyond the western bank, the Red Priest's temple flared like emberstone in the rising sun. Captain Sarala, once Mirio's partner, now commander since a Brevosi crossbow quarrel ended his miscount of cargo tariffs, guided the cog through thrumming traffic. When docklings groaned taut, she approached Lyanna with a leather wallet containing seals impressed by Doran's cipher. Tiger priests question everyone, she warned. Answer little, pay generously, and never mention dragons save at shrines. The Volantines want lost glory, and Redlur's acolytes want your soul. Keep both wanting. Lyanna inclined her head. You have our thanks, Captain. I'd rather Dornish gold, Sarala replied, then grinned. Which I possess already. So all's well. She clasped Lyanna's wrist in farewell, rougher than a sailor's rope. Eyes flicking briefly toward Jon with unexpected fondness. Safe road, Sandwall. Volantis assaulted their senses. Spice smoke, fish brine, perfumed girls advertising. Saffron kisses, cargo masters, shouting rates. 2 stags a crate for myrrh, half again for saffron. Lyanna kept Jon close, palm resting on the dagger hidden beneath a drape of linen the color of dusk. A sellsword with painted tiger stripes across his cheek scowled when Jon darted past. Lyanna felt tension coil, but it passed like clouds. The guide Doran promised arrived by noon. Balakwo, a half-Roiner interpreter with mismatched eyes, one milk white, one amber, ushered them toward the eastern caravan district where the Martell-funded caravan awaited. 10 wagons lacquered scarlet stood ready, drawn by lumbering oxen. Eunuch drovers fussed over canvas awnings fashioned to cast deep shade. The caravan master, An Essosi named Yandri, the even-handed, greeted Lyanna with courteous blandness before turning to his ledgers. He insisted they depart by sunset to outrun monsoon swell along the Demon Road. The Demon Road, an ancient Roinar route carved through jungle and stepped to the ruins of Sarmel, then skirting the Red Waste toward Marine, was safer than open sea where slaver galleys prowled, yet not without peril. 9-headed basilisks hunted its southern stretches, and brigands haunted the collapsed stone causeways. Yandri employed 24 spearmen and a trio of crossbowmen atop each wagon. Lyanna added her own vigilance, drilling John nightly in the cramped rear of their wagon. Footwork, lunges, parries with blunted wooden sticks. Sweat soaked their linen. Jungle insects whirred. The fourth night John landed a clean tap against her elbow and grinned, dimples flashing. Pride warmed her chest. Burnished by fear, for each skill hastened the day he would face steel, not wood. Weeks ebbed in the rhythm of travel. Mornings broke with monkey shrieks. Midday sun hammered earth. Evenings cooled to velvet gloom alive with frog choruses. Lyanna and John shared stories with caravan companions. Miners bound for copper diggings near Tolos, a Myrish glassblower lugging fragile crates, a shy septa carrying translated prophecies of the Seven to remote missions. They called Lyanna Lynessa of the North Orchard, a widow seeking trade in the exotic East. The lie tasted stale but safe. Trouble found them on the 22nd day. The caravan wound between moss-draped pillars of a ruined Valerian fort when arrows sliced from vine-curtained shadows. 2 spearmen toppled. Oxen bellowed. Brigands clad in patchwork armor surged, war cries echoing like jaguar roars. Lyanna shoved John beneath the wagon, drew her Myrish dagger, and rolled to meet a marauder's pike thrust. She ducked, slashed at hamstring. Blood sprayed. Nearby Yandri's crossbowmen fired down from wagon roofs, skewering attackers who attempted to climb. Amid chaos, John crawled toward a fallen spear. Terror twisted Lyanna's gut, yet she dare not scream lest break focus. A second marauder swung a scythe at her head. She parried with dagger hilt and elbowed his throat. He gagged. She seized his short sword and pivoted. All crisp instincts drilled at Winterfell's yard long ago under Roderick Castle's eye, and ran the blade through his gut. Pain lanced her shoulder. An arrow grazed flesh. She spun, threw the dagger end over end. It lodged in an archer's chest. The fight ebbed when the brigand chief, a huge Kiskari with gold nose ring, fell screaming under Yandri's axe. Survivors fled into undergrowth. Aftermath reeked of copper and burnt powder where a wagon's firepots had shattered. John emerged, face ashen. Blood flecked his cheek. Others' blood. Lyanna wiped it away, ignoring her own wounds. He trembled, but did not cry. Pride warred with sorrow. No child should know battle so soon. Yet such times allowed no gentle childhood. 2 spearmen buried dead comrades, laying stones with silent prayers. Yandri bound Lyanna's shoulder himself, respectful now. "You handle steel like a Bravosi first sword," he observed. She nodded curtly, hiding North blood behind Lyseni courtesy. The road grew harsher. Dust replaced greenery, heat oppressive as forge fire. Oxen slumped, water skins dried to leathery folds. They skirted Sarhoy's tomb-studded plains, hollow-faced colossi half devoured by sand, and pushed north to the red waste's maw where storms birthed whirlwinds of rust-colored grit. John pressed cloth over mouth, his hair matted with salt. Still he pointed wide-eyed at lightning that flickered within distant dust devils. On the 41st dawn, green smudges appeared on the horizon, the irrigated outskirts of Marine, fed by canals from the Skahazadan. Slender horsemen in patchwork mantles rode out to inspect the caravan. They bore brazen harpy badges, the freedmen militia, unsullied allies. Their leader, a scarred Kiskari named Yantaz, carried a writ sealed with 3-headed dragon over a blazing sunburst. Dorne's and Targaryen's colors bound. "Prince Doran foretold your arrival," he told Lyanna with formal bow. "Queen Daenerys welcomes friends of Dorne. We escort you within the hour." "Dinnar." Lyanna's pulse thumped. "Daenerys, Rhaegar's sister, now a queen of city and dragons. The idea felt unreal as children's fable. Would the Silver Queen accept Jon as kin or view him threat? Dragons devoured rivals, though Targaryen lore spoke of kinships forged in shared flame. Lyanna's steadied mind. Much depended on her words. The caravan creaked through Myreen's Harpy Gate, beneath shattered slave mastheads. Streets bustled with freedmen in dyed tunics. Sellers' cries calling figs, locust pastry, fermented mares, milk dye. Unsullied in polished bronze helms, stood sentinel at crossroads. Above them soared two dragons, green Viserion and cream gold regal, wheeling lazy as storm gulls. Jon gripped Lyanna's hand so hard her fingers numbed. She whispered, calming nonsense, though her own heartbeat galloped. Dragon roars rattled shutters like thunder. They halted before the Great Pyramid, its golden apex gleaming. Shantaz offered guest rights at a fountain courtyard where acolytes poured date wine. Lyanna washed travel dust from Jon's cheeks, replaced his sun-bleached tunic with fresh indigo courtesy of Yanri. She donned a simple sand-rose gown and left her dagger sheathed but visible at belt. Honesty clad in caution. Inside columned halls painted with fighting dragons, Missandei of Enith approached. Slender, honey-hued, eyes bright with measured kindness. She introduced herself as translator and steward, guiding them through opaline corridors scented with lemongrass. At last, they entered a high lantern chamber, where Daenerys Stormborn held informal audience. Or rather paced near an open balcony from which warm air swirled, carrying charred meat scent, dragons feeding far below. Daenerys' silver gold hair cascaded in 3 braided loops. Sunlight haloed her slender form clad in loose turquoise silk. Her violet eyes fixed on Lyanna first, then drifted to Jon with startling intensity. Silence hung. Lyanna bowed. Your Grace, I am Lynessa of Lys, son of Lyanna Stark. The Queen's voice rippled quiet but certain. My brother Rhaegar's paramour named you in songs, yet Rhaegar told me little beyond harp chords. I did not know he beguiled a wool. Daenerys' tone carried no condemnation, only raw curiosity and old grief. Lyanna swallowed. He did not beguile. He loved unwisely, perhaps. I loved poorly, perhaps. But love it was. She inhaled. My son, our son, is Jon. She turned Jon's shoulders gently to face the Queen. The boy raised his chin, eyes clear. Daenerys approached, studying him like a jeweler assesses rare opal. A faint tremor fluttered Lyanna's stomach. Then Daenerys knelt, level with Jon. Do you know who I am? Jon hesitated. You're the Dragon Queen. Some call me that. She smiled faintly. Do you know dragons? He nodded. I saw them flying. I want to ride one. Then Norm toi. An echo of laughter warmed Daenerys' eyes. Perhaps one day. She rose, gaze soft. His blood calls to them, I think. Fire recognizes fire. Missandei exhaled quietly. The room's tension eased. Lyanna spoke next, reciting their saga. Escape from Tower of Joy, Sunspear refuge, Lys exile, Ned's death, flight to Bravos. She spared none of her shame, nor disguised hope. Daenerys listened, expression shifting from sorrow to simmering fury, when Robert's cruelty re-entered narrative, cooling again to steel calm at mention of the War of the Five Kings. My brother's dream burned kingdoms, the Queen murmured when Lyanna finished. Yet, perhaps through this child fire and ice might be balanced. She paced toward balcony, wind-stirring braids. You seek refuge. Doran Martell seeks alliance. I seek justice. Not for revenge alone, but to save realms from monsters gathering beyond Shadowlands and far north ice alike. Dragons alone cannot hold the world. Bonds must. She turned. Will you swear pledge? Lyanna knelt, drawing Jon down. I, Lyanna Stark, swear life and steel to protect your cause so long as Jon remains free to choose his path when man grown. Daenerys inclined head. So witnessed. She extended hand. Lyanna kissed knuckles, salt tang of desert on her lips. Over subsequent days, Meereen became new hearth. Queen's Council, Tyrion Lannister, Grey Worm, Cerberus Selmy, restored from convalescence, and Dario Naharis, met to plan voyages west to retake Westeros. Lyanna attended thrice, offering northern intelligence gleaned from Braavosi trade networks. White Walker resurgence north of the Wall, Bolton treachery at Winterfell, Frey atrocities. Tyrion listened keenly, scribbled notes, inquired about Winterfell's grain yields. Jon, meanwhile, explored training pits reopened for freedmen militia. Grey Worm assigned veteran Unsullied named Kellak to drill him in shield parries. Kellak, once Dothraki slave, taught silent efficiency. Jon soaked lessons like parched sand, absorbing rain. One afternoon, Rhaegal roosted atop the pyramid. Daenerys invited Lyanna and Jon to ascend the wind-scoured terrace. Scales shimmered gold-green, heat radiated like forge fire. Jon stepped forward unbidden. Dragon eyes, vast, slit-pupilled, fixed on him. His fingers lifted to touch serrated snout. Rhaegal exhaled hot sulfur breath yet held still. Lyanna's breath caught. Daenerys watched wide-eyed. "He accepts," she whispered. "No dragon allows strangers touch unless bond sparks." She faced Jon. "Would you fly with him?" Jon nodded, slow, fearless. Lyanna struggled with maternal terror. Still, she forced trust. Rhaegal lowered forelimb. Daenerys guided Jon onto ridged shoulder, where chain loops made crude handholds. A guttural thunder shook stone as dragon leapt skyward, hauling Scirocco gusts. Lyanna pressed hand to chest, half praying to old gods, half exulting though tears blurred vision. Green gold wings beat, sweeping boy and beast into cerulean vault. Minutes later they spiraled back. Jon slid to terrace, flushed, exhilarated. "He sounds like mountains moving," he gasped. Daenerys smiled. True, unguarded smile. "Many feared dragons lost a world again until I hatched mine. But perhaps they waited for riders such as you." Mentor Wineshore. The Queen convened private council that night. "I will name Jon Prince of Dragonstone when we land," she declared. "If Westeros balks, let them witness Rhaegal's fire. But we must temper announcement. Reveal lineage gradually, else half the realm rallies behind Lannister lies of abduction and bastardry. First Dorne, then North." Tyrion sipped wine. "Your Grace, lords recall Robert's rebellion began over rumors of abduction. They may not swallow second serving easily." Lyanna leaned forward. "Then we feed them truth slowly. For now, call Jon Word of Dorne and Squire to Dragon Queen. When North is freed from Bolton grasp, Ned's children can speak for blood." Her voice tightened, naming her slain brother. Barristan stroked beard. "We must also secure Riverlands. Lord Tully's garrison may heed Stark namesake." Strategy blossomed. Unsullied garrison in Meereen to maintain order. Ironborn fleet under Yara Greyjoy pledged to ferry troops. Dornish spearmen ready to land at Stone Drum. Dragons would scout for Euron's marauders and burn any slaver galleys daring pursuit. War would come swift as monsoon squall. Preparation months foamed by. Lyanna sparred daily with Dario, his flamboyant Eric blurring arcs she narrowly dodged. He jested about northern ice melting under his charm. She retorted ice-preserved corpses nicely. Mutual respect grew. Jon practiced aerial maneuvers, astride Rhaegal tethered by long bronze-linked lead, anchored to Pyramid Plateau. At dawn he soared free across Skahazadon Delta, each return broadening grin. Word reached Meereen of Cersei's wildfire decimation of the Sept End, and her coronation upon Iron Throne of Ash. Doran's Raven reported Arianne sailing for Meereen with 7,000 Dornish. In the north, Jon's cousin Robb proclaimed king after routing Lannister hosts at River Run and marching to free Winterfell. The world cracked along fault lines. Daenerys resolved to set foot on Westeros before spring's thaw. The great fleet assembled. 51 Myrish galleys, 12 Kuhoric war barges, 36 Dornish dromons, and 300 transport cogs. Dragons circled above rigging forests, like living gusts of lightning. At dawn's crimson cusp, Lyanna, Jon, and Daenerys boarded flagship Winds of Dawn. a sleek carrack whose sunrise-painted hull bore both Sunspear and three-headed dragon. Departure felt like world heartbeat. Drums, horns, sails billowing. Marine's harpy banners dipped farewell. Lyanna watched Delta recede, thinking of years spent forging new self. Behind her, smoke curled from sacrificial pyres where freedmen lit incense for fortune's favor. 2 months' voyage wove across summer sea. Storms tested masts. Rhaegal and Viserion skimmed ahead, fiery silhouettes against thunderlit sky. Lyanna braved deck lashings to stand at prow, inhaling salt that tasted of Winterfell's weirwood tears. Every league sailed north drew memories sharper. Father's booming laugh, Benjen's sly grin, Ned's patient counsel, Arya's wolfish smirk. She owed them truth, owed them living, nephew. Landfall came at Sunspear first, symbolic return. Dornish folk thronged harbor walls, cheering queen and prince. Doran, pale but purposeful, greeted them in sunlit courtyard blanketed by orange petals. He embraced Lyanna long, murmuring, "The realm stirs." He pressed Dragonbone key into her palm. "Starfall holds something stolen from you." She suspected Dawn, the ancient sword Arthur Dayne once carried at Tower of Joy, now kept at Dayne's seat. But other tasks pressed. After desert respite, fleets sailed west, hugging coast to avoid Ironborn raiders. They reached Dragonstone under Night Vale. Jon guided Rhaegal to land atop broken battlement, once roost to dragons dead 2 centuries. Castle caretaker Ser Manfred Celtigar knelt weeping, believing House Hour of Glory returned. Raven flew to Winterfell, delivered through secret channels by Mance raiders surviving spearwives. A simple parchment. A son of Lyanna breathes. Keep faith. Sansa Stark received it. Tales later said she fainted then rose, trembling but resolute. War Council convened in Dragonstone's painted table chamber. Dennis dead. Wall undermanned. Night King rumors swirling from beyond. Davos Seaworth, soul worn after Stannis' fall, swore fealty to Daenerys upon sight of dragons. Lyanna accompanied Daenerys to parley with Jon Snow, now king in the north following Robb's death during Red Wedding's alternate betrayal, word-altering saga timeline. Their first meeting occurred on windswept strand at White Harbor's breakwater. Snow, cloaked in direwolf fur, studied Lyanna with shock. He once saw her only in dusty crypt statues. She clasped his gloved hands, tears scalding. Snow glimpsed younger Jon behind her and whispered disbelief. Explanations spilled amid gull screech and crashing tide. Jon Snow's voice cracked, uttering, "Cousin?" He knelt to child, promising every northern heart loyal. Lyanna told grown Snow of Ned's burden, promise, silence, sacrifice. They wept in salt spray. Alliance sealed, northern armies mustered with Vale Knights. March south would see Daenerys. But urgency loomed larger. Undead host breached Eastwatch, walking into Gift's farmlands. Bran Stark, now Greenseer, warned of Long Night's shadow. Dragons needed north. Lyanna insisted. Iron Throne can wait when kingdom itself may freeze. Daenerys agreed, shocked to advisors thirsting for crown. Fleet sailed to White Harbor bearing Unsullied and Dothraki, brought via overland and ships. Dragons overhead, Dornish spears within holes. Northern smallfolk gaped at exotic cavalcade. Winterfell's reunion carved ache and joy. Through swirling snow, Lyanna strode beneath walls she last saw as girl promised to Robert. Sansa and Arya met her in Godswood. Words failed, only embraces beneath Weirwood's bloody leaves. Ghost trotted behind, sniffing boy Jon before licking his cheek, as if recognizing blood. In crypt, Lyanna knelt by her own stone statue, carved years prior. Torchlight danced across features. Sculpted, idealized maiden. She touched cold hand. "I outlived my monument," she murmured. Jon Snow laid his palm on her shoulder. Together they moved to Ned's tomb where Stone Wolf stood vigil. No tears remained. Only quiet vowed that his death would forge dawn, not dusk. War Council inside Great Hall felt surreal. Daenerys flanked by northern lords, free folk chieftains, Dothraki Khals nodding uncertain amid snowdrafts. Plans formed, Draw Night King south toward field where dragons and dragonglass arsenal awaited. Lyanna volunteered to lead infiltration team retrieving dragonglass. From caves of Skagos, rumored thick with black crystalline veins, her familiarity with stealth and blade suited task. Voyage to Skagos proved perilous. Narwhal ice tore hull planks, cannibal clans ambushed landing party. Lyanna, Jon Snow, Tormund Giantspan, and Mira Reed fought through labyrinthine caves echoing with ice whale song. They harvested cartloads of obsidian shards, losing 3 men to cave-in, and discovered ancient spiral sigils carved by children of forest around stone pedestal, bearing petrified heartwood seed. Bran later claimed it was conduit of old magic. On march back, a blizzard swallowed encampment. Night King, astride undead ice wyvern, descended with vanguard. Lyanna heard wing beats like glaciers grinding. She saw blue flame incinerate Dothraki outriders, felt air freeze skin. Rhaegal and Viserion, still alive in this strand, engaged in sky clash of green gold versus corpse white, lightning crack of jaws. Child Jon, sheltered in Winterfell, remained safe, but Lyanna feared grown snow might fall. She sprinted through snowdrift toward skirmish, obsidian spear in hand. White walkers advanced in shimmering ranks, each stride stilled air. Lyanna's first spear throw shattered one walker. Shards tinkled like broken glass. She raised second when undead giant slammed club, sending her spiraling. Ribs cracked. Pain darkened vision, yet she rose. Memories of childbirth agony fueling defiance. She drove spear upward into giant's jaw. Icy head exploded in blizzard crystals. Meanwhile, Snow wielded Valyrian steel greatsword gifted by Daenerys. Lightbringer reborn in rumor, dueling Night King amidst swirling snow devils. Daenerys joined aerial assault. Dragonfire clashed blue flame from undead wyvern. Lyanna, staggering, glimpsed Child Jon's Dragonbond echo. Rhaegal roared sense to boy's distant heartbeat, unleashing verdant inferno that sheared undead wyvern's wing. Night King fell to ground, snow charged, parried spear of ice, plunged Lightbringer through Night King's breast. Blinding crack softened sky. Walkers shattered, whites collapsed. Silence after storm felt like world's first dawn. Survivors looked upon Lyanna swaying blood-speckled. Snow rushed, caught her. She managed to grin. Stubbornness runs in wolves. Winter slowly lifted. With undead threat quelled, Daenerys advanced on King's Landing supported by triumphant banners. Cersei, desperate, unleashed Scorpion. Ballistae but dragon's sword unpredictable arcs. Rhaegal's fire melted iron arms. Child Jon rode Rhaegal in final assault, gliding along crenellations scorching Lannister's lion banners. Gold cloaks surrendered. Small folk cheered return of dragons bringing spring warmth. Council assembled within Red Keep's throne room, charred but standing. Daenerys claimed Iron Throne yet declared new charter. Great Council of Realms, where each kingdom, North, Dorne, Reach, Stormlands, Isles, Vale, Westerlands, elects voice. Jon Snow retained kingship of North. Sansa named voice. Tyrion chosen hand. Lyanna accepted seat as Queen's protector and ambassador of new age of balance. Child Jon, now squire, studied histories under Archmaester Samuel Tarly, preparing eventual ascension as mediator between dragon and wolf legacies. Robert Baratheon's relics melted into coins funding orphan houses. Cersei imprisoned at Silent Sisters Holdfast, peace slowly seeded. Yet Lyanna knew cycles of power seldom sleep. She taught both Jons, cousin and son, lessons scar-carved. Secrets breed tragedy, but truth delivered with wisdom can heal. On 3rd anniversary of Long Night's End, a feast at Winterfell honored fallen. Snow-laden courtyards sparkled under aurora. Lyanna stood by Godswood, inhaling crisp pine, listening to children's laughter from training yard, where Jon and Rickon raced direwolf pups. Daenerys approached, cloak of starfall silk trailing. Realm mends, she noted softly. Pain echoes, yet yes, mends, Lyanna replied. Would you ever return south permanently? The queen asked. Lyanna's gaze drifted to great hall's amber windows glowing. My heart walks many roads now. Sunspear's courtyards, Lis perfumed nights, Bravos fog canals, Marine's blazing sun. But wolves howl here, and when they do, I remember who I was before love and war. She smiled. Perhaps I live between places, as mother of dragon wolf who must belong everywhere. Snowflake settled on Denmer's silver hair. The world needed your courage, though men once cursed you for following it. I understand more than most how love judged by others can ignite flame. She took Lyanna's hand. Together we forged morning. Nearby, Child John climbed Rhaegal's outstretched wing under Jorah's watchful eye. Moonlight gilded scales. Dragon launched, scattering snow into shimmering veil. John's laughter soared. Lyanna felt tears, this time not of grief, but fierce gratitude. Across field Ned's statue glimpsed through archway seemed to smile with granite solemn grace. She pressed palm to heart, whispered, "Promise kept." Then she turned toward future, hearing dragons roar not as harbingers of doom, but heralds of dawn, and seeing in their shadow a realm renewed, born of ice and fire tempered by sunlit truth.